Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make an easy watermark using GIMP, which as you can see is a GNU image manipulation program. This is something that you'll have to download, but it is available for both Windows computers and Macs. It is effectively a free version of Photoshop, although it does have some limitations and some things are a bit more tricky to do in this program than in Photoshop. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need the character map. So to find that, it's one of the apps, but I'm just going to use the search option just to type in character, and then it just brings up the character map for me, and it will open that so that I can use it. So you see that I will need this for my copyright and my registered signs. Normally you can use alt codes or different codes to type them in, but for some reason I can't get GIMP to accept those. So I thought we'd use the character map. Okay, so what we're going to do to start with is we need to create an image to work on to create our watermark. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and I'm just going to work with 1200 by 1200. It gives me a nice big workspace, and the reason I've gone with 1200 wide is that when you're uploading images to Facebook, that's the width that they want for your images, so that your smaller image doesn't get made bigger and the quality reduced. So 1200 is a good number to keep in mind, and we may as well just start with a square just to keep it nice and simple. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check it's going to fill with my background color, which is at the minute not what I want, so I'm just going to change that. I'm going to fill it with white just so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK, and there's my 1200 square image to work with. To make it a bit easier for myself, I'm going to add some guides, just because we all know how much I like things to be properly lined up. So I'm going to add a new guide by percent. I'm just going to add a 50% horizontal and a 50% vertical. Now the 50% vertical is probably going to be more useful. You'll see what I mean in a minute, but I'm going to start with that. I can always add more guides, or I can take those away. Right, I need to add some text, so I have my text tool selected. Okay, at the minute you can see that white is my foreground color and black is my background color. That's not going to be very useful for a watermark right now, so I'm going to flip those over, and then I'm just going to click on my canvas to create a text box. Now the first one I'm going to do is going to be for the little greenhouse. Okay, at the minute you can't really see that. I'm going to make that font a lot bigger, so that's going to make it a bit easier for me to see. So I'm going to make it 60. I'm also going to change from this default font that comes up to a nice clear display serif font, Play Fair Display. Okay, so you can see that that's created some clear text for me. Okay, it's still highlighted. So what I want to do is I want to move that around. So I'm going to switch from the text tool to the move tool. Okay, and then as you can see the icon change? To actually move, be able to grab that text layer, I need to be hovering over some of the actual text, and I need to have that white crosshairs in order to be able to click and drag that. So I'm just going to kind of work in the top left hand corner of this, and as you can see I'm just going to use that guide to give me something on the right to line everything up with, and it's just snapping to that guide. So I'm going to add some more lines of text, and it's going to be a bit easier if I could zoom in. So I've got the move tool selected, and then I'm just going to type the plus key on the keyboard. Okay, and that's going to let me zoom in. Okay, and then just move it up so I can see it a little bit better. So I'm zoomed in, makes it a bit easier for me to line everything up. Okay, my next line is going to be a URL for this business. So again, I'm going to select the type tool. I'm going to click to create a box, and then I'm going to type. So at the minute she doesn't have a website, so I'm just going to put her Facebook page for now, but of course in the future we can change this very easily. So I'm just going to put facebook.com/ and the name of the page is the Little Greenhouse Creates. Of course I could have put facebook.com, but what you want to do is give the shortest possible URL and leave out any extraneous characters. If you type in facebook.com/ the Little Greenhouse Creates, you get to the same place because Facebook redirects that fb.com to facebook.com, so it still works. But do just double check that everything works before you make anything that's semi-permanent like this. Okay, so same thing, I want to highlight, I want to change the font to being the same for this one. I'm going to keep it nice and straightforward, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because this is less important than the actual business name. So I'm going to start with something, say 35 point, and then I'm going to move this into space and see how it looks. Okay, so again there's the white crosshairs, and I'm going to line it up with that end. So everything's going to end at the same point. So that's just one way of lining up your lines for your watermark, is to have them all end at the same point. Okay, so the third line that we need is the copyright statement. Okay, so again I'm going to do a type tool, and I'm just going to type images. Okay, now I need the copyright sign. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I'm just going to type everything first. Stampin', apostrophe, up with the exclamation mark, because we know we need to punctuate it as in the brand name every time we write it. Okay, and now I am going to grab the special characters that we need. So if you remember, I opened the character map, so I'm just going to open that again. I'm going to find my copyright sign. I'm going to double click it so that it appears here, and then I'm just going to click copy. Minimize that for a minute, and then I'm going to place my cursor. So I want to be images space, and I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to check there's still a space between that copyright and the Stampin' Up. So that's all fine. Then the other one that I need is the registered sign, so I'm going to delete that here, otherwise it'll copy it again. I'm going to double click, and then I'm going to click copy again. Minimize that. This time I want it to go at the end, so I'm going to paste at the end. Okay, now I'm going to turn it into Playfair again. Okay, and then I'm going to change the size just so that you can see this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller again than the URL, because again it's less important. Okay, so now you can see that we have, if I move this to one side, you can see that we have the copyright sign and we have the registered sign as a superscript there. Now Playfair Display codes that registered sign so that it automatically comes up as a superscript. That's actually a bit tricky to do with other fonts, but I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. So what I'm going to do now is just line this up with the rest of my watermarks. So I'm going to very carefully move that up. Okay. Now there are two ways of doing this. You could make the spacing here and here equal, or what's a little bit easier is to make this slightly bigger in a more deliberate way and then have these closer together. What you don't want to do is make this gap too big, because then it starts looking like two separate watermarks and takes up a bit too much space covering your photo. Now what we don't want to do is export this yet, because we haven't got a transparent background. Okay, and that's what you need in order to be able to use something as a watermark. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over to this layers panel, and I'm going to click the background. I'm going to go to the image, and I'm going to select crop to content, and that's going to crop it really close to my text. Okay, and then I can remove that background, okay, just by hiding that layer, and this gives me my transparent background that I need. Now in order to save this and reuse it, you're going to want to go to File, you're going to want to click Export rather than Save, okay, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got PNG selected. Okay, so this, okay, is for Sam DC. Okay, so I'm just going to name it as that. Okay, and I am going to export it. Okay, and that's going to create the PNG file that I could use on my photos. Okay, and then those default settings are okay. Okay, so that's now saved as a watermark that I can use. Okay. One other thing you might want to do is that you might want to actually create this in white as well as black. Okay. Now in other programs, sorry I'm saying that a lot, in other programs you can do that with a couple of clicks. It's a bit more work on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go edit, we're going to go undo the item visibility, we're going to undo the crop, okay, to take it back so that we can edit these text layers again. And I'm not going to do anything particularly special. Because I haven't edited these text layers, they're just the usual font, I'm just going to use the type tool, I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm simply going to change the color. Okay, so what I did there was I just clicked on the color icon there, and I can then select white, or I can type in the 6 Fs for that white code and click OK, and then my text obviously disappears. If I want to check that it's still there, if I hide the white background now, you can see that I've got that as white text. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back. So then I would obviously do the same for my other layers. So I would just turn that to white as well. Oops, don't want that layer, I want this layer. Select all again, change that to white. Okay, and again, if I click off and highlight that, you can see that now everything is in white, and I could do exactly the same thing. So I could crop to content, file, export, okay, and I'd need to give this then a different name so that it saves as a separate file. Okay, so there I have a black and a white version of that watermark. Keep watching if you want to see me create some different style watermarks with some different fonts and some other hints and tips. So I'm going to start a new document just to keep this nice and simple. I'm going to set it back to 1200, 1200 again. Okay, this time I accidentally left it with the background colour in, so all I have to do is I can delete that layer to get rid of that. I can then go to Layer, Add New Layer, and then I can choose this way to fill it with white instead. Okay, so that gets me the white layer. And then the same thing, I'm going to go with guides. Okay, new guide by percent. I'm only going to go with the vertical one for now. Okay, so there we go. Again, I'm going to start with black text. Okay, and this one is for June. Okay, highlight that, and the font that I'm going to use for this one is called Wanderlust Decorative. I'm going to make that quite a bit bigger. Okay, and then move that one into so that it's lined up with that guide. So you can see that plus in the center. This time it's snapping it to that guide. Okay, and the same thing, I'm just going to zoom in so that I can see this a bit more clearly. We can all see it a bit more clearly. Right, back to the type tool to write my URL next. So create this, and we have www.stampwithjune.com. Okay, again, like I said before, there's no reason to put the HTTP or HTTPS bit in there. Your browser will deal with that anyway. Give people as little to type as possible, make it as easy as possible for them to follow your information. Now, to go with this slightly fancy brush font, I'm going to choose a pretty simple serif font. Okay, and I'm going to make that, let's say I'm going to make that 40 for now. Okay, and then I'm going to click the move tool and move it. Okay, now just in terms of it being a bit more pleasing to the eye, what I'm going to try and do is get it so that the lines kind of start and finish at the same place. Now, I don't really like messing too much with the spacing between the letters, because sometimes you can go too far and it kind of makes it a bit unreadable. So I'm going to see if I can just do it by making the font slightly bigger. Okay, so I'm going to go with 45. Again, I'm going to snap it to the middle. Okay, I can see that that's a little bit too short still, so I'm just going to go with 46. It's made it slightly bigger. Okay, it's in the middle. I'm going to put it there. Okay, now this is an example when another guide might be useful. So I'm going to go to guides, new guide by percent. I'm going to change it just so that it's in a different place. So it's got me another guide. I've got the move tool. This means I can actually move the guide. Okay, so if I kind of pop it to the side here, you can see that that's just about finishing at the right point, and that one's probably just about finishing at the right point. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, that's lining up, and that kind of looks balanced. So the next line I need to add is going to be the images copyright Stampin' Up. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to type bits I need first, then I'm going to hop to the character map. I'm going to copy the C first because that one's generally rather straightforward to do. I'm going to do images space, paste, copyright space, then I'm going to hop to the end. I'm going to copy the registered symbol and then paste it at the end. Okay, so at the minute I'm in the wrong font, so I'm going to highlight everything and I'm going to put it to the same font that I chose before, and then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than this but a little bit smaller than what's on top. Okay, I might even make it slightly smaller than that. Okay, now as you can see with this one, the registered sign isn't actually superscript, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of playing around to make it look right. So what I'm going to do is, using the text tool, I'm going to actually select that R, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to delete it from that bit there, and I'm going to put it in its own little text box. Okay, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to make it smaller so that it's going to kind of appear like a superscript. Okay, this is going to be where horizontal guide is actually going to be quite useful. So I'm going to add one of those. Okay, just anywhere for now. Okay, and what I'm going to want to do is use the move tool to line up this R with the top of my text. Now obviously I'm far too far out to be able to do this properly, so I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, and you can see that it probably needs nudging up a little bit, so I'm going to use my arrow key just to move it up. Okay, and then I can use my guide just to kind of see, okay, the top of the apostrophe is kind of matched up with that R. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so what we've got here is we have these now two separate layers, but we want to keep them the same, or rather we want to keep them together when we move them. So what I can do is I can take that layer and I can actually select merge down. Now what this does is it does make that layer not editable. Okay, so if you want to change it to white, what you're going to have to do is do that first. So what I can do, is I can undo that merge down. Okay, I can then see this icon here. I can duplicate that layer and I can duplicate the images copyright Stampin' Up! One. Okay, and I can just hide those for now. And then I can just work with these two that are now visible to start with. Okay, and I can redo that merge down. I've lost the button. There it is. Okay, I can redo that merge down, and it means this one is kind of joined together. So what I can do is if I zoom out again, I've got the move tool. I can grab that using the white, seeing the white crosshairs. I can snap it to the middle, and I can then line it up with the text above using the same principle. Okay, if I zoom out a little bit more so that we can actually see the text. So I'm kind of using the same principle, that I'm going to have a deliberate gap here and slightly less of a gap between these two here. Of course, you can always make that images copyright Stampin' Up! Even smaller if you wanted to. Okay, so now I could do exactly the same with this as I did before. So I could crop it to content, remove that white layer at the back, and then export as a PNG. Okay, and the only difference from the last one is that if I want to deal with having a white, if I want to make a white watermark at the same time, is I'd need to go back to these in order to turn these white to create my white layer. Okay, so for example, if I put those back, okay, and if I use my text tool, if I highlight those in exactly the same way, I'm just going to click white, so it's going to disappear for now. I'm going to click on that, a little bit hard to grab that one, click on that registered symbol, do the same thing, add it as white. Okay, and then these two are my white two, so again I would do the merge down, and that's going to give me a white layer, okay, that I can move around, so you'll see it there. So I've used that that type tool before I've merged the layers to change that to the right color and kept it all consistent. So my watermarks, I can make them identical by moving this one and lining it up with the other layer. Okay, because I can do the center thing and I can line it up perfectly so that it's obscuring that black. So I know that my watermarks are going to be perfectly aligned. Okay, they're going to be identical. It's just that I've had to make that white layer in a slightly different way. Remember, you can always use the arrow keys to nudge if you just want to move it just a teeny tiny bit. Now I've got one more idea to show you if you want to keep watching, which shows you how you can mix fonts a bit in the kind of focal point of your watermark. I'm going to open a separate document just to keep this nice and easy, and I'm going to start by zooming in. Okay, so it's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to start with my text tool. I'm going to write the text for the part of the text for Rebecca's watermark. Okay, I'm going to highlight that and turn it into the font that she's chosen. Okay, and then I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger again. Okay, so when I saw this font, I saw that the B is quite a bit higher, so I thought that what we could do is we could actually try making this a little bit bigger than the rest of the text. Obviously, if Rebecca doesn't like this, I can change it. Okay, and then that gives me a space here where I thought I could kind of tuck in the rest of the name of Rebecca's business that she wants on her watermark. So I want to line these things up, so I'm going to grab myself another guide. Okay, and then just move it, get the move tool, and then just move it to one side, and then move my text to one side. Okay, so it just snaps in there. Then I'm going to get my other text box, and I'm going to add a little bit more contrast by doing this in all capitals. So that's another thing to remember. You don't just have to add contrast with different fonts. You can add contrast by using capitals versus lowercase, and you can also use bold versus regular text. I would tend to avoid italic simply because it could be quite difficult to read. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to a simple skinny sans serif font. Okay, and then I'm going to bring it up to quite a bit bigger, and then use the move tool, and you can see that I can grab that and I can line that up there. Okay, so it's kind of tucking in, but it's not quite big enough yet, so I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to take it up a little bit further. It can probably even go a little bit further than that. Okay, and then we can move that up a little bit to create a bit more spacing. Okay, so it's kind of tucked in there, and you can see that if I were to move that to there, it could probably go a little bit higher. Okay, I want to pop that grid back so I can just undo that move of that guide. So then I can nudge that up. Okay, so that's probably better aligned with the top of the B. And now I want to add the URL for the website, which is going to be her DBWS. So I'm going to go back to the text tool. I'm going to type exactly what I want my customers to type in. So if they type in without the HTTPS, okay, they will get there. Okay, you don't want them to put in the www, so leave that bit out. Okay, so I'm just then going to make it into that same font that I used before, then play with the size a bit, check my spelling, and then obviously that could be moved into position. Now what I'm going to want to do is center it with these, so I'm going to have to do a bit of trickery with the layers just to make sure that I can edit those if I want to turn it white afterwards. Okay, I want to make sure that I don't get confused over which layer is which. Okay, so this is my Stampin' Up bit, which is going to be the lowest one of this, so I may as well put it at the bottom. Don't want to lock it, so I can click that off. So these are the two that I want to duplicate and merge. So I'm going to duplicate that one, then I'm going to duplicate that one. I'm going to move one of those up to the top, and then I'm going to hide those two, and then this one is the one I'm going to merge down with that one below. Okay, so then this one I can grab and I can then line up with that guide, and then I can, a bit difficult for me to grab this one, so I can select it on that one to make it a little bit easier, and then I can grab that and move that one up. Okay, you see I've just accidentally moved that white layer, so I'm just going to click move. I'm going to finish this off doing the same steps as I've done before, so with the images, copyright, Stampin' Up, and then moving the background to export as a PNG with a transparent background, and then also making a white version. Okay, but you've seen all those steps before, so I'm not going to keep you from making your own watermarks. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you find it useful. As ever, let me know any questions or feedback that you have, and don't forget to join my Facebook group for more tutorials and help with tech.